Blacksmiths in ancient Egypt were forging weapons hotter than your modern gas grill, using nothing but a clay pot, a handful of dirt, and a piece of pipe. No electricity, no propane, no $3,000 equipment. And today, or right now, you can build the exact same forge for $20 in 15 minutes. Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you has been sitting in plain sight for 5,000 years. And most people walk right past it every single day. This isn't a hack I invented in my garage. The ancient Egyptians used crucible furnaces to smelt copper and gold as far back as 3000 BC. The Greeks refined it. The Romans mass-produced weapons with it. Medieval blacksmiths built entire economies around it. And in 2019, researchers at the University of Cambridge studying ancient metallurgy confirmed something remarkable. These primitive forges could sustain temperatures above 100 degrees Celsius. That's hot enough to melt iron. That's hot enough to forge steel. And the core technology? It fits in a 5-gallon bucket. So here's the question nobody asks. If this technology is 5,000 years old, if it works at temperatures that rival modern equipment, if it costs $20 to build, why don't they teach this? Why isn't this in every workshop manual? Why do equipment manufacturers spend billions of dollars making sure you believe you need their $2,500 gas forge to get started? I'll tell you why. They didn't bury this knowledge because it failed. They buried it because it worked too well. A beginner blacksmith with a $20 forge and a YouTube education can produce functional tools, knives, and metalwork in their first week. That's a customer they'll never sell a starter kit to. That's a hobbyist they'll never upsell on premium fuel contracts. That's a survivalist who doesn't need their supply chain. The knowledge didn't disappear. It was quietly moved to the back of the room, covered in dust, labeled primitive, labeled obsolete. It was never obsolete. It was inconvenient. Let me take you back. A small village in rural Pennsylvania. A man named Thomas, a farmer, not a blacksmith, breaks the only plow blade on his property. Nearest town, 4 hours by horse. Nearest blacksmith, closed for the winter. What does Thomas do? He does what his grandfather taught him, what his grandfather taught him, what had been passed down through generations of working people who couldn't afford to wait. He digs a hole in the ground. He lines it with clay from the riverbank. He cuts a hole in the side. He slides in a metal pipe connected to a hand bellows, a simple pump his son can operate. He fills it with charcoal, the same charcoal you can buy today at any grocery store. And within 20 minutes, he has a working forge. By nightfall, that plow blade is fixed. The harvest is saved. No supply chain, no invoice, no waiting. Just ancient knowledge applied with modern hands. Now here's what makes this story remarkable. Thomas wasn't special. He wasn't a trained metallurgist. He wasn't a craftsman with decades of experience. He was just a man who remembered something the world was slowly being convinced to forget. And what happens next changes everything. Because the same system Thomas built in 1850 is the same system I'm going to show you how to build today. We haven't even gotten to the science yet. And once you understand why this works, you'll never look at a bag of charcoal the same way again. Here's what's actually happening inside that clay pot. Charcoal, pure carbon, burns differently than wood. When wood burns, it releases water vapor, gases, impurities. The temperature plateaus. It fights itself. But charcoal? Charcoal has already been through fire. The impurities are gone. What's left is almost pure carbon. And pure carbon, when it burns with forced air, doesn't plateau. It climbs. Add a simple air source, even a hairdryer, and the temperature inside that chamber starts pushing past 700 degrees Celsius. Add better airflow. 900 degrees. Sustained, focused airflow over 1,100 degrees Celsius. That's the magic number. That's the point where steel becomes workable, where iron softens, where metal stops being rigid and starts being sculptable. And the clay, it's not just holding it together. Clay is nature's refractory material. It reflects heat back into the center of the forge instead of letting it escape through the walls. The ancient Egyptians didn't choose clay because it was cheap. They chose it because nothing man-made at that time could do the job better. Modern forges use ceramic fiber insulation that costs hundreds of dollars per sheet. Clay from your backyard does the same job. The physics don't care about the price tag. This is just the beginning. Let's talk about money, because this is where it gets almost offensive. A beginner propane forge from a popular manufacturer starts at $350. It goes up to $600, $800, even with $200 for a professional model. Then you need propane. A standard tank runs you $60 to $90 to fill. And if you're forging seriously, you'll burn through 2 tanks a month. That's over $1,000 in your first year before you've made a single thing. Now here's the alternative. 1 5-gallon steel bucket, $8 at any hardware store. 1 bag of furnace cement or simple clay-based plaster, $6 to $10. A 2-inch steel pipe, $3. A bag of lump charcoal, $12 at any grocery store. enough for multiple forge sessions, and a cheap hairdryer or a hand pump bellows, already in your house or $5 at a thrift store. Total cost, under $20. And the charcoal? Unlike propane, you can source charcoal locally. You can even make it yourself from scrap wood if you know how. But that's a video for another day. The performance gap between a $600 propane forge and a $20 charcoal bucket forge. For a beginner making knives, hooks, brackets, and small tools, there is no gap. The metal doesn't know how much you spent. And here's something they really don't want you to know. Professional bladesmiths, the ones making knives that sell for thousands of dollars, many of them started on setups exactly like this. Some of them still use charcoal forges by choice, because charcoal produces what's called a reducing atmosphere inside the forge. It actually protects the steel from oxidizing while it heats up. That's not a bug. That's an advantage. The expensive forge has to work around the problem charcoal solves for free. What I'm about to show you works. Let's build it. Here's exactly how to build your $20 forge. 15 minutes, no welding, no special tools. Step 1, get your bucket. A standard 5-gallon steel bucket. Not plastic, steel only. You can find these at hardware stores, sometimes for free if you ask nicely at construction sites. Cost, around $8 new. Step 2, mix your refractory lining. You need to insulate the inside of that bucket. Your options: furnace cement from the hardware store, or a mix of perlite and sodium silicate, or even plain sand mixed with clay at a 50-50 ratio. Mix it to a thick, paste-like consistency. Think peanut butter, not soup. Step 3, line the bucket. Apply a 2-inch thick layer of your refractory mix around the inside walls and bottom of the bucket. Leave a flat spot at the bottom. That's where your fire sits. Now press a bowl shape into the center. This is your fire chamber. It should look like a shallow bowl, roughly 8 to 10 inches across. Let it dry. If you're in a hurry, you can use a heat gun to speed this up. Full drying time is ideally 24 hours, but even 2-3 hours with a heat gun gets you most of the way there. Step 4, cut the air inlet. Near the bottom of the bucket, about 2 inches up from the base, drill or cut a hole exactly the size of your steel pipe. 2 inches in diameter is ideal. Slide the steel pipe through the hole. It should angle slightly downward toward the fire bowl, so air is directed into the fire, not over it. Seal around the pipe with more refractory mix. Let it set. Step 5, your air source. This is where people overcomplicate things. Don't. A cheap handheld hairdryer on its lowest setting pointed into the pipe works perfectly for most beginners. A dedicated forge blower, which you can find online for around $15, is better for sustained sessions, or build a simple hand bellows. A YouTube search will show you how in 10 minutes. Free if you have scrap wood and leather. Step 6, load and light. Pour lump charcoal into the fire bowl. Lump charcoal only, not briquettes. Briquettes contain binders and additives that contaminate your fire and your metal. Light the charcoal with a simple lighter and a piece of paper. Once it's catching, turn on your air supply. Low to start. Within 5 minutes, you'll see the charcoal turn from orange to white. White charcoal means you're above 900 degrees Celsius. That's your forge, that's your window. Place your steel into the fire, buried in the white-hot charcoal. Watch for color. Bright orange, 850 to 950 degrees. Yellow, getting hotter. Yellow-white, above 1400. That's forging heat for most steel. Pull it out. Strike it on an anvil, or a piece of railroad track, or a heavy chunk of steel. Shape it. Return it to the fire when it cools below orange. Repeat. That's blacksmithing. That's the ancient craft. And you just unlocked it for $20. I want you to sit with that for a second. 5,000 years of human metallurgy. Entire civilizations built on this knowledge. Weapons, tools, art, architecture. All of it shaped by a process you can now replicate in your backyard. In 15 minutes, for less than the cost of a fast food meal. The information was always there. Someone just decided you didn't need to know it. Now, I need to be straight with you because I respect your time. This setup is not perfect for every situation. If you're forging large pieces, thick stock, horseshoes, heavy-duty tools, you'll eventually want a larger chamber and a more powerful air supply. This forge has limits. If you're heat-treating high-carbon or tool steel where precise temperature control matters, you'll want to invest in a proper setup with a temperature gauge over time. And charcoal requires more management than propane. You'll add fuel every 15 to 20 minutes. You'll learn to read the fire. There's a skill to it. But here's the thing. That skill is the point. Every master bladesmith, every accomplished blacksmith I've ever seen interviewed, they say the same thing. Learn to read the fire. Learn to read the metal. This forge teaches you that. A digital propane setup with automatic temperature controls does not. This is how you learn the craft, not around it. The ancient Egyptians knew this. The Roman legions were armed by it. Medieval Europe fed itself because of it. And modern science in labs at Cambridge, at MIT, in metallurgy journals that most people never read, confirmed every bit of it. The physics are real. The process is real. The results are real. And now, you know it. You walked into this video as someone who thought blacksmithing required thousands of dollars and years of training. You're leaving it knowing that the barrier was never the money. The barrier was the information. And you just crossed it. Build this forge. Share this video. Every share is one more person who gets to remember what they were never supposed to forget. The ancient world knew this. Science proved it. And now, you know it too.